Hello everyone, my name is Caden K of Hide and Seek, and welcome to a brand new video. Grab a snack, as usual, grab a blanket, get comfy, because today we're actually going to be going into an unsolved cold case? Kind of? It's still open, but it just hasn't been solved. Okay, we get the idea. Today we're going to be going over the Austin yogurt shop murders that happened in 1991. This is a little eerie for me simply because this happened in my own state. It kind of motivated me to look into it, and I kind of just went into like every corner of the internet trying to find anything on this one because it's just a really interesting one. There's lots of unknowns. There's so many. Oh, I'm doing too much talking. Enough of my rambling on. Let's hop in. It's the night of December 6th, 1991. 4 girls were closing up the local I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop in Austin, Texas. These girls were 13-year-old Amy Ayers, 15-year-old Sarah Harbison, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison, and 17-year-old Eliza Thomas. Jennifer and Eliza both worked at the shop, while Amy and Sarah were just assisting with closing up. The reason they had assistance that night was that Jennifer was going to take Amy and Sarah home for a sleepover. The time is around 9:30 p.m., and an officer by the name of Daryl Croft speaks briefly with a suspicious individual that is at the shop. The man hung around in the store for a good portion of time. This prompted Croft to speak with one of the girls running the shop after noticing the man go in the back of the store multiple times. The girl that he spoke with just said that he was simply going to the restroom. Multiple times within the span of an hour. Suspicious. That's a little suspicious. Eventually, the man sat at a booth with another unidentified individual. These men stayed in the shop until 10:47 p.m. The shop was then closed at 11 p.m. by Jennifer and Eliza. All of the girls that were in the shop never made it home that night. The time is now 11:47 p.m. and an officer tells dispatch that there is a fire at the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop. It takes 6 minutes for the fire truck to arrive at the shop. Eventually, there are a total of 3 fire trucks that arrive to extinguish the fire. Once the fire is put out, there is a horrific scene. All 4 of the girls that were at the shop that night were found dead. Jennifer Harbison, Sarah Harbison, and Eliza Thomas were found near the back door of the establishment. Amy Ayers was found near the walk-in cooler. All of the girls were naked and bound and gagged with their own clothing. The girls were burned so badly that they were barely even recognizable. Autopsy reports show that all of the girls were shot in the back of the head, execution style, and that 2 of the girls had been raped. Upon closer inspection, it was learned that 2 types of bullets were used in the killings, leading investigators to believe that there were 2 killers. Here is what detectives believe happened that night. A little after 11 p.m., Jennifer, Eliza, Sarah, and Amy were forced into a storage room at the back of the yogurt shop. They were ordered to remove their clothing and were then bound. At some point, Amy was separated from the other girls, taken into another section of the back room, and sexually assaulted. All of the girls had been shot in the back of the head, with Amy having been shot twice, and Jennifer, Eliza, and Sarah having been shot once. After the girls had been shot, the gunmen gathered various items from the storage area, mainly burnable materials. They then doused the items and the girls in lighter fluid and set the store on fire. The perpetrators then fled. These horrific murders shocked the Austin community. Here's what a few high schoolers had to say about the deaths of these girls.
The very next day, you saw people drawn to the crime scene, carrying flowers, carrying notes, trying to make sense of the senseless.
I mean, you don't ever think anybody's going to come into a yogurt place and shoot you. And shoot you and all your friends. It just doesn't happen in a yogurt place.
They died and they were so, they were our age, and I mean, it makes you really think, tomorrow isn't promised. And I mean, anybody here may not be here tomorrow, and it's just scary and it hurts.
A lot of the people within the Austin community claim that that was the day that Austin lost its innocence. The funeral mass for the girls is held at St. Louis Catholic Church. More than 1,500 people attended. The girls are buried in the Capitol Memorial Garden Cemetery. The investigation for this was very difficult, from people being mentally ill to people just wanting clout. There were a lot of people calling in confessing to the crimes. There were a reported 342 suspects and a total of 6 written confessions. One of their suspected killers was a man named Kenneth Allen McDuff. On his execution day for the murder of other teenagers, he confessed to the killings within the shop. After McDuff's death, the authorities investigated his confession, but ruled him out when fingerprints and hair collected from the yogurt shop could not be linked back to him. The police managed to narrow it down to 4 main suspects after 8 days of investigation. These 4 people were Maurice Pierce, Forrest Wellborn, Michael Scott, and Robert Springsteen. Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen both confessed to the killing of the girls. The police developed a theory that all 4 had planned to rob the store, but that something must have gone south and resulted in the death of the girls. Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen were both found guilty of capital murder, but only Springsteen received the death penalty. Maurice Pierce and Forrest Wellborn had their charges dropped rather quickly because there was a major lack of evidence that connected them to the crimes. Now that seems like it. We got our 2 dudes. Other 2 guys might have just fit a description, but they weren't them, whatever. We got our 2 main perpetrators. That's it. We're done. Case closed. Here's where things get interesting. After Scott and Springsteen's trials were done, there was actually a major lack of evidence within the case to support that they did anything. There was no physical evidence left at the scene that reinforced the idea that these 2 did any harm to the girls. Adding on to the sketchiness of that, the pair even revealed that their confessions were coerced. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision among the 2 either. There's actual evidence supporting this one. Detective Hector Palenko was fired for allegedly coercing confessions from another murder case. So, this leads people to believe that he was involved in this one as well. There was also allegedly a picture of a member of the Austin Police Department pointing a gun at Scott's head during the interrogation period. I use allegedly because after my research I couldn't find this picture, so we're just going to go with allegedly. Around 15 years after the killings, the convictions were overturned because the courts found that the Sixth Amendment rights of the 2 had been violated. Scott and Springsteen's confessions were used against one another at trial, but their lawyers were never given the opportunity to cross-examine the accuser. As a result, it was determined their constitutional rights had been violated. The one that sealed the deal was in 2008, when DNA testing was done and determined that it didn't match Scott's, Springsteen's, or the 2 others. The 2 were eventually freed. Maurice died in 2010 of December after getting into an altercation with an officer, but the rest of the men continued to walk to this day. Even though the charges were dropped, many still believe that Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen were actually behind it the entire time. This is supported by the idea that both, while being interrogated, were able to provide details about the crime that hadn't been released to the public. Robert was able to accurately say the position of Amy Ayer's body, and that he knew she had been shot with a .38 handgun. Very odd details to openly bring up, especially considering that it hadn't been released to the public yet. But, in the end, all men walk free now. Who killed these innocent girls that night? Did the Austin Police Department have the right people all along? Only time will tell. And this brings us to the end of the Austin Yogurt Shop murders. Tragic. That's all you can say. These girls haven't even graduated yet. Some were still in high school. One of them, I believe, was still in middle school as well. These girls were so young. They had so much life, and it was taken by however many individuals, 2, I'm assuming. I did put their find a graves in the description, so please leave a message. It's good to put some good energy out in the world, especially during times like this. It's the least that we can really do. Obviously, I want to inform you guys on a bunch of crimes and stuff like that, but also be aware that putting some good energy out into the world is most important as well. I don't want to just clog up your minds with a bunch of just pessimism, But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Caden Knighton of Hide and Seek, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, why not like and subscribe? It helps me out. I do appreciate it. And if you didn't like it, why not leave a dislike and let me know what I can improve on? I always look for constructive criticism. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in the next one.